Hi, everyone. I wanted to remind you of a must read. This is a book that you have to have on your bookshelf. It is called The Necktie and the Jaguar by Greer. He is able to help you make important decisions, give you some guidance on which path to take, and you get to learn how he tapped into the wisdom and power of the unseen worlds for guidance and inspiration. I had the opportunity to interview him, and he was a lovely guest on the Path 11 podcast, episode 343. Check it out, listen to the podcast, go buy the book. Again, it's The Necktie and the Jaguar by Greer. To find out more information, go to his website, carlgreer.com. That's spelled CarlGreer.com. Today's podcast episode is sponsored by the Reconnective Healing Global Community. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in 2020, we released an episode with Dr. Eric Pearl and Jillian Fleer about Reconnective Healing. He was a chiropractor who was working in his practice in Los Angeles, and his patients started to report that they were having these healings just with his hands being near them without him actually touching them. So he went on to research and try to find out what this universal wisdom was behind what was happening, and he developed the Reconnective Healing process. Their website is thereconnection.com, and they are offering an online level 1 class called The Portal to awaken your own healing ability and to learn how to do this. There's over 8 hours of interactive content where you will learn to interact with energy, light, and information to experience lasting knowingness, peace, and love without limitations. They gave us a coupon code to give to all of our listeners. It is Path2Portal. We're going to put that in the show notes, and that's 25% off of the Portal online level 1 course. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you take it. Send me an email. Would love to know how the course works for you. Hi, and thanks for tuning in to the Path 11 podcast. I am your host, April Hanna. At the Path 11 podcast, we are here trying to deliver leading-edge research on consciousness, healing, and metaphysics. And just like you, we are trying to answer the big questions about life. Who are we? Why are we here? And what is our purpose? We hope by listening to our podcast, it will make each day you live on Earth a little easier to understand. And now for today's podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Path 11 podcast. I have a really interesting guest today. I think this is going to be a lot of fun because we kind of share a lot of the same interests in healing and Reiki and angels and crystals and aromatherapy and mantras, and you name it, we're going to talk about it today. So my guest today is Athena Bahri, and hailing from a Hollywood dynasty as the niece of Rita Hayworth and cousin of Ginger Rogers. She is the author of a new book that is out called Raise Your Vibes. If you're watching this interview on Path 11 TV, you'll get a chance to actually see the cover. You'll see it in her background here. And she began her career, believe it or not, as an actress, as Athena Cansino. So we're going to find out about that. How do you go from being an actress to becoming a Reiki healer, right? That's pretty cool. So before leaving her life of glamour and paparazzi, she decided to create a life of peace and energy healing. She is the founder and creator of Crystal Reiki Healer, one of the fastest growing online presences for Crystal and Chakra Education, Crystal Reiki Healing, and raising the energy vibration for all beautiful souls who are searching to better their lives, which are all of you who are listening and watching the Path 11 podcast. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the beautiful Athena. Welcome, Athena.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. Hello to your community. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day so far.
Yeah. So you come from quite a lineage, huh? Ginger Rogers, Rita Hayworth. So tell me a little bit about your lineage first.
Yes, I happen to have a famous family. It's not that different for me. I guess it's like growing up in a family of doctors or lawyers. I just happen to grow up with a family of actors and performers and dancers. And it's just always been kind of part of growing up and who I am and knowing about it. It's always kind of funny when someone gets excited about it because I'm like, oh, it's my aunt or oh, it's my cousin, like, okay, that's cool, So for me, I don't get starstruck easily, I guess, because I know that they're, really human beings too. And they all have the same, issues and struggles that we have in our daily life. They're just a little bit more public about it.
Right, exactly. And kind of have to be, I guess, if they step into that role, right?
Yeah.
Did you feel any pressure of having to go into acting and stuff like that because you came from that lineage and that family of actors and dancers?
Did not. It was just kind of a natural thing, I guess. They say like it's in your blood. So when I was a kid, I was very animated and loved to be in the school plays and loved dance. I was a ballerina for years and years. And I've heard all these stories and pictures, family pictures of, my family with their castanets and their fancy dresses. And I just thought, oh my God, that's so beautiful. As a little girl, that's, super exciting. And I was very, very feminine and very into all that dress up. So it was really a natural thing. My grandmother loved, supporting anything related to the arts. So she was really kind of my advocate. And my parents were both in film as well. My mom was a cinematographer. So I really grew up kind of in front of the camera my since birth. Right. So I was always posing and giving her different things for the pictures. She was just here actually visiting. And of course we did a little photo shoot because that's, what we do. And then I went into acting. My dad was definitely more hesitant to let me explore that. He had connections that he could have helped me with and was like, nope, absolutely not. Like this place is horrible. They destroy people and, all of the negative sides of the business he was very familiar with. And he was very close with his aunt, Rita Hayworth, and saw what they did to her and how they portrayed her and, really made her struggle at a time when she was very vulnerable. And that was with the onset of her Alzheimer's, but also with, failed marriages and men who were predators and, all of this stuff that people don't see behind all the glitz and the glamour. So he was really like, nope, nope, we're going to wait. Yeah, you're 16. Nope, not going to happen. And then when I was 18, 19, I was like, nope, I'm doing this, I'm going. And it was super exciting for the time. My first month, I booked a national commercial on TV and it just kind of kept spiraling from there. I walked the carpets in Cannes and, flew around the world, filmed movies in different countries. And it was such a beautiful experience. But a lot of it was, a place for me to almost like therapy where I could grow and heal emotionally and also kind of put on that facade, right? Where you don't have to deal with your own personal issues. So you can just pretend they're not there and, go out in front of the camera and be someone else. And then at some point that comes to, I also got married and I met a wonderful, wonderful man. We're still married all these years later. It's 19 years later now. And I knew that this field and my marriage were not going to work. Rita had 5 failed marriages. Ginger Rogers had 5 failed marriages. It's not very family friendly. You're gone. You're all over the world. So I kind of had to choose, do I want to, foster this new marriage and relationship I have, or do I want to continue and, hope that one day it turns into, something else. And I obviously chose him. So, and it was great because at the time, TV and film had just started making this kind of switch, which everybody has seen. There's, a lot of nude scenes, a lot of graphic, like almost like soft porn. And I was, the girl in the bikini. I was the girlfriend, and that would have been me. And I was very not comfortable with that. So it all works out, it all works out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and you said kind of like acting and dancing runs within the blood, but I also think intuitive ability does as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, did you have, members of your family too that were also very spiritual or were kind of mentors to you or open to talking about spirituality when you were young?
Yes, both my mother and my grandmother from my dad's side were very, very in tune. My mom's a Pisces. We always said it was because she was a Pisces, and they're very intuitive signs. But she always was looking at, the holistic way of doing things, and let's try this first before we, go to the doctor. And she was really amazing, like a medicine woman. It was like she just knew, like, oh, this will help for this cold, this will help for this ailment. And so I just grew up having this kind of, holistic side of things. And she had a really interesting background, grew up in Scientology. So even though my dad forbid it in our house because he was against it, in Scientology, they are also very holistic, very, not into the Western medicine stuff. And if you can cure it with herbs, then that's what you do. So it kind of, I guess, came through in that way. And then my grandmother had a very different side too, because she lost my grandfather when she was quite young. She was only 50. He died before I was born. And she had visitations from him. And while everybody thought she was just a crazy mourning wife, she knew she was having these experiences, and she told me about them. And introduced me to Carl Jung and other spiritual minded books. And she was always into leading a more spiritual path. She had come from her mother was during the Great Depression, selling Bibles, and then became a Catholic and was very devout. So she always had a very strong sense of faith. But then it kind of transformed, and it went from being, this faith in religion or a book or something that man has made to something much broader with her spiritual faith. So it was, again, one of those things I grew up with, and you hear about it and it becomes your normal, and you have little experiences that you're like, oh, that's what grandma's talking about, or, oh, that's what mom was saying. So definitely I was blessed to have two women that were very spiritually minded and open to, outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, interesting too, from the faith base that your mom comes from, your grandmother comes from. How did you begin to form, and what do you feel is like your spirituality now? Like, do you have a certain belief system that you practice or follow with, all that you have in your book here, Raise Your Vibes too? What would you say, like, you began to create for yourself and your own belief system for your spirituality?
I did. It went from, I used to pray a lot when I was a kid. My mom decided when we were teenagers that we needed to have some kind of core belief in something, something that grounded us here and kind of helped me get us out of trouble. Right. And so she brought us to the Mormon church. And even though I ended up getting in more trouble in that church with the girls there, they did teach me how to pray. And it was really in that practice that grew my gratitude practice, because I thought, wow, it's so interesting if you break down their prayer. And I'm sure it's similar in many other religions. It always begins with a thank you, thanking God for, all the things we're thankful for. Thank you for my mom. Thank you for my house. Thank you for my dog. All these things when you're a kid. And then you ask for what you want. And then you close, with a thank you. So I thought, wow, there's really something to this. And maybe I don't believe necessarily in, where their focus is going. Like it's just, it's God, it's source, it's the universe, it's everywhere around us. And I don't love like the rules of what it has to be or can't be. I love to think outside of that, but I love the basic structure that they used for creating this, what is now my gratitude practice. And I find that, when I begin my day like this, everything, thereafter is just kind of shifted into a positive note and a positive vibration. My sister is very religious, Christian. She too, with her prayers, is all about gratitude and thanking God and all this. And although she's, maybe it has a slightly different version than I do, at the end of the day, it's showing gratitude. So this really helps all of us and can help all of us if we're open to it. It's so easy. I mean, it takes a second. You can consider it prayer. You consider it, gratitude. You can consider it whatever works for your own faith. I have no judgment on, what people believe to be their source of inspiration. But, having this gratitude practice really started to form and shape. And then having experiences like seeing angels and communicating with, beings that weren't necessarily in the present, I guess we would say, or in the physical plane. So that really changed also my view of how things work here. Like maybe it's not quite as they say. And that was a really cool thing. And then, based on your own experiences and my own experiences, little by little, you start to look outside the box. And I started looking into energy healing and crystals. And I love the union between them. Little backstory, I had a car accident when I was 19. I rolled over in a convertible 4 times on the freeway.
Oh.
Slammed into a mountain. It was rolled over, landed upside down. It was pretty spectacular. And one of those things that, you really look back and even in the moment, like, how did I walk away from this? And I did. I walked away. I didn't even have, a scratch on me, but every shard of glass, was shattered. And with the exception of my driver's side window, which I really felt like my grandmother was there, my mom's side, holding that for me, protecting me, because if that had shattered, my face would have as well. And that would have been, the end of acting. That would have been, I wouldn't have been in the circles that I was in where I met my husband, and have my children now, my life now, everything, that the way the course of my life went would have been, very different. And I had these women that pulled over, saw the accident. It was a hit and run, never found out, who it was or where they went. And they pulled over, and because I had hit where the gas tank was, they were scared my car was going to blow up because it wouldn't turn off. And they were frantic, screaming to get me out of this car. And I was, upside down, completely disoriented. And they're like, "Can you open the door?" And I remember looking at her like, "Are you kidding? It's like in the dirt. How do I can't?" She's like, "No, just pull the latch." And I was like, "Oh," and I pulled the latch and she was pulling and then I was kicking. And between us, we got, about this much space open. And to this day, I've never felt such incredible human strength. This woman, this angel, reached in like a baby under my arms and lifted me from this car like I was a rag doll. I mean, it was the most incredible feeling. I'll never forget it. And she pulled me out and got me away from the car and stayed with me and told the paramedics and the police what had happened. And because they were like, "What, is she drunk? What happened?" I'm like, "No, I swear, like, I'm not even old enough." And then from there, we went to the hospital. I had all the scans. They thought I broke my neck. So I was strapped to a board and everything. And lo and behold, there was nothing that showed up, for my neck. We found out later I actually had the beginning of degeneration for my low back. The discs definitely took a hit there. And I had, after this, would be 16 years of chronic debilitating back pain where, something would happen, I'd sleep wrong, and then I would walk for a couple of days. I mean, it started where, one day in my apartment with my husband, I couldn't get up and I was on the floor crawling, trying to get to the phone and, in agony. And he came home and he, like, "Oh my God, my young bride, what's happened?" And he scooped me up and took me to the office. He's a chiropractor. So he took me to the office and was doing therapy and muscle work and everything to try to get my muscles to let go so I could move. And then this poor guy spent the next 16 years working on me and trying to help me manage my pain. And it finally came to a head where I had a fusion surgery. And that was really a very humbling experience. Like, talk about pain. It's like you're broken apart and put back together. It was just insane. And I had started doing Reiki leading up to this because I thought I can't just be on pain medication my whole life. Like, this is terrible. I've been on these heavy drugs for, years and years. And like, what's it doing to my body? And here I have this holistic background. So it was really against, my beliefs, and it was against, everything that I thought for myself as far as my health. And at the same time, I couldn't live with the pain that I had. My quality of life was just deteriorating. So I thought there has to be something else. Like there has to be. This can't be the end of the line. Like I refuse to accept that. We're not doing this. And so I started looking into Reiki and I thought, wow, okay, this is very in line with, what I believe in this, divine light, divine healing. It's something, beyond ourselves, beyond this physical place, because there are so many miracles that are unexplained and has to come from somewhere, right? And so I thought, let's start channeling, this beautiful energy. And in the hospital, while I had a fracture. So it turned out, it was one of those things. He couldn't help me anymore. And no amount of muscle work or pain meds was going to fix the fracture. And my vertebrae were just kind of, dancing around in there, hanging out. And we had to stabilize because, when they start hitting nerves, you have that nerve pain. Anybody who's had it, it's debilitating and it really takes away from anything you can do, even normal functions in your life. So we had to get it fixed. And in the hospital bed, it was the most incredible, mind-blowing pain I've ever felt in my life. Like I've had 3 kids and that was nothing compared to what I was going through in this hospital. And so I'm laying in this bed, shaking. My jaw would rattle from the pain, crying, sobbing. And I don't know what's going on, where I am, what's happening. They keep giving me more drugs and nothing is happening. And finally, and they told me I'd be there a day and I was there for like 5. So my husband's leaning over me during one of these shaking periods, which must have been very scary for him to watch.
Sure.
And he shouts, "You're a Reiki master, for God's sakes. Athena, do Reiki on yourself." it was like this, click, this light bulb. Anybody who's done Reiki, it's always this beautiful, soft, angelic kind of, environment. You have music and maybe some incense and your crystals and you feel good. You could fall asleep. It was not like this. This was traumatic. This was loud. This was sterile in the hospital, like not fun. And I had this moment of, oh my God, like, yes, I can do that. Can I do that? I can do that. So I started, to perform my treatment. And it was really incredible because in maybe 45 seconds, my body I could just feel my body calming down. My breath came back to me. My jaw stopped rattling. All of a sudden, I can see I actually had a whole bunch of people in my room that I had no idea were there. And it was really in that moment that I thought, oh my God, this is not just, I do love it and I've always loved it, but now I know this is real. Like this is not hoodoo voodoo, as my husband would call it. Like this is something that's real. And I need to share this. I need to get this out. People need to know you can do this yourself. Like, look at all this stuff these doctors have done for me helplessly. And I'm laying here dying, like in pain. And here you can take your power back. So it really became, a mission to share that and to get that word out and help people kind of just take their power back in their own healing in their own body, because our bodies are such miracles, we're these incredible vessels with, millions and millions of little cells that are all moving and all have their own little job and, come together to make this, human body. And then there's so much beyond just that physical part. So having that connection between, our mind, our body, our spirit really is life-changing on your own path. And I living testimony of that. I have no pain to this day. And it's like, thank God, like knock on wood, right? But I live today with no pain. And it's such an incredible blessing because anybody who has knows how hard that is to live with.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most beautiful gifts. If people are curious about Reiki or wanting to learn it, really the first stage or the first level, the first training of it is to learn how to give it to yourself. everybody. I wanted to just take a quick moment to tell you about a beautiful divination deck of cards that you can get your hands on. My friend, Molly Mandelberg, spent 2 years traveling the world while writing and illustrating the Wild Hearts Rise Up Oracle deck. This inspired pep talk deck has some serious magic inside. Pulling a card a day from this deck will encourage you to bring your dreams to life, to allow that idea tapping you on the shoulder to finally manifest into physical reality. It's sassy, insightful, and potent. The link to check it out is in the show notes of this episode. Just click on there. It's going to bring you right to the Oracle deck. And again, it's Wild Hearts Rise Up Oracle deck. And the other thing that I love about this story is that it reminds me that we also have free will and that sometimes we need to ask, and I know that that's kind of one of the rules of the angelic kingdom, right? It's like they're here and they like activate when you ask. Otherwise, they're just there, like waiting, ready. But for your husband to remind you of that and then to tune in and allow the energy to flow with the connection that you have there. But I think it was a matter too of exercising your free will and asking for the Reiki to come through and giving that permission, for that to be activated within you to help you.
Absolutely. Yes. If you don't do the work, you don't ask, nothing's going to happen. When I was first introduced to angels, it's so funny you say that, like they're just here hanging. Someone had told me that too. They're like, you have your angels around you all the time and they're bored. Like give them something to do, talk to them. And I was like, wait, talk to them? Like, what do you mean? But I don't see anything. And then once I started, it was amazing how like it changes, right? And they love it. And they have such a sense of humor. I mean, sometimes you'll ask for a sign and the way it comes through, you're just like, oh my God, angels. Like really? Like, okay, you're having fun. Great.
Yeah.
And the more you talk to them and engage, the more they bring those blessings to you. But absolutely, you have to ask. You have to be open and allow yourself to receive, but ask. Yeah.
Yeah. And to remember to ask. And it was funny, like last weekend, I did a craft fair. I kind of make jewelry on the side. So I was doing this fall craft fair and, it was still kind of early. And I think the second day, the weather wasn't as great. And I think even the first day too, I did this too, but I just kind of remembered, like, ask the angels to help. So after I set everything up, I said a little prayer and I said, angels, can you please bring people over to my booth that just want to feel beautiful and buy this jewelry, because I infuse my jewelry with Reiki. So when I'm making the jewelry, it's kind of a meditation practice for me, and I think about health, wealth, abundance for the person that will wear this, let this Reiki go into their body as they wear this jewelry. But it's so funny. Like sometimes I really forget to activate my angels or to ask for help. And then as soon as I did that, it was like, all right, was it just coincidence that all of a sudden more people started coming to the fair? But like my booth was just slammed, it was like made a great amount of money for the weekend. It was so much fun. People didn't even want bags. They were putting the jewelry right on them as soon as they bought it. But, it's like those little moments. It's like we're allowed to ask for that help, and it's okay for that help to help us to also put money in our pocket or, to bring people over to, enjoy in the craft that I made. So, but you have to remember to ask, and sometimes I forget, like you said, the angels are bored. Like you have to ask them. Sometimes I have to remember to talk to them every day because I don't always talk to them every day.
Yes. I mean, it's true even for us who work in this field where we're, always energetically charged or infused or whatever you want to call it. But even for us, we can get caught up in the mundane of, daily life and daily tasks. And, I have 3 kids. Sometimes, life just gets crazy and overwhelming and I don't know which way is forward. And just taking that moment to pause, like angels, it relieves out, use a hand here. And that's true. I love that they showed up at your booth and we're like, all right, let's get some action over here. And they work like that. And yes, some people will say, oh, it's just a coincidence. Oh, it's not real. And for those that say that, I invite you to try it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just try it. See what happens, likewise for, friends or clients where they have a spouse that's not quite so open and look at all this stuff like, oh my gosh, what are you turning into a witch? What's happening? My husband too was very skeptical. He called it voodoo and, asked if I was becoming a witch and all this stuff. And it's like, well, yes, I am. But, it wasn't like that. And it was, but so what I thought and what I suggest for others, and it's in the book as well, is, just continue your practice. Keep doing your thing, living your truth, do your rituals, create your practice, set up your altar. And you'll find that, your partner will, sometimes be a little curious, like, wait, what are you setting up over there? And oh, what's that crystal for? Why are you burning that? And instead of trying to give them like a whole lesson, because they're so not ready for that, right? They're not there. It's just like, oh yeah, this is, here, this is a garnet. It's pretty cool. You want to hold it? Like, here, just hold it. And they'll take it and be like, oh, okay, like that's pretty cool. Or, they'll wave the incense or something. And then, little by little, it's like with children when you're introducing them to like new foods, right?
Right.
Little like, wow, what is this at first? And then it's like, okay, I'm going to try that. And then, it opens their palate. Well, it's the same with spirituality. You're opening your mental, your spiritual palate to be more open to trying different things. And then you find what works for you and you just, keep doing that. And then for people who are, for those of us, I'm sure it's happened for you. It's happened for me where something you're doing is just like, not feeling it. It's not resonating for me. It's not working today. Like instead of just throwing in the towel, shift that focus. Like life is a journey and we're constantly learning. And so as long as we look at it like that, learn a new skill, learn a new, way of talking to your angels, do it with journaling, do it with, just change it up a little bit to keep your practice feeling high vibrational and keeping you, into it, keeping your focus there and your desire to continue. Sometimes we just got to change it up a little,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I loved about your book too. Hold on, let me just kind of bring you to the side here so I want to let the listeners know what I love about this. This is kind of like an encyclopedia of the spiritual world. And it reminds me, I wish I could remember when I first started, I don't know, I think I was a teenager. Somehow we got these things that were mailed to us and they gave you a binder and each week or whatever, or each month you can opt to buy more pages that would go in. But it reminds me completely of this book because it had everything about like angels and crystals and stones and energy healing and stuff like this. And then, when I opened your book and I was looking at, the contents, you have this whole thing in part 1 of what Reiki is. You introduce people to the chakras, what self-attunement in Reiki is and self-healing. And then part 2, meditation, crystals, intention candles, the violet flame, sound healing, aromatherapy, smudging, affirmations, manifestation, angels and signs, moon rituals, which I love, practicing gratitude. And then the part 3 is how to raise your vibes, right? So we teach people how to clean their energy, to find their focus, improve the self-confidence, and it just kind of keeps going on from there. And the pages, it's just so much fun. There's like, for people who are like me and visual, there's like pictures and there's diagrams, that you can have. And I'm showing this on the TG here. I just loved it. I really like too the mantras, Om Shanti Om. You have like how it's pronounced, what the meaning is. So I turned to there because I don't know a ton of some of these that I learned in yoga classes. Like I don't have a lot of them committed to memory, but I was like, oh yeah, this was a good refresher for me. And I feel like that this would be a great book for people who are maybe just awakening, on their spiritual path. Like they feel overwhelmed. They don't quite know where to start. Do you buy a book on crystals, a book on Reiki, a book on affirmations? It's like, no, just buy Raise Your Vibes because it has a little bit of everything. And then you can dive into and then buy some other books. But this is kind of like a beautiful catch-all, for people who are curious and just starting to come into this world. And I also can think 2 of my best friends, their daughters are teenagers now. And, they come over to Aunt April, they see the crystals, I'm giving them incense and stuff like that. This is like a perfect book, I think, too, for teenagers, at least the teenagers that I know and love who are like really curious about spirituality and I just love that you give a little bit of everything, and I remember you saying before we hit record that your publisher was like, you can't put any more in, enough. So tell me a little bit about like the inspiration of wanting to put all that you've learned into this
Yeah.
book. How did this book come about?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I definitely got cut off at some point where it's like, this is going to end up being a gigantic book and it's going to be really hard for us to like pitch this, like slow down, save some for the next one kind of thing. And really it was because the thing is, there is so much. So while I'm writing a book about raise your vibes, and in that third part, as you mentioned, this is really where it focuses on things that we all deal with in our daily lives. So issues with confidence, issues with heartache and grief, issues with, everything, focusing as a student, especially when you have exams. I work with a lot of students that are like, I can't get my head together. Help me, and I'll do Reiki for them too. But, it's nice because there's so much. And I wanted people to have at least an introduction to what some of these many tools are. Like I had said before, I'm really outside the box, right? I love to think outside the box. And I don't think that when you say, okay, well, I'm going to leave from this faith or belief system to strictly into this other faith belief system. Like, no, there is so much out there. And, what works for you today might not work for you tomorrow. Maybe you're just not feeling it or that isn't working for you somehow. So, one day you're talking to your angels and the next day you're like, okay, I didn't get my sign yet. I need to do something else. Great. Move on with your sound, with your affirmations, with your mantras. I love having the mantras in there broken down with the pronunciation because a lot of people will see it. And myself included, when I first was listening to them, I love Deva Kamal. She has a whole healing mantras CD or music set. They don't call them CDs anymore, but, full album. And I had to listen so many times just to try to understand what she was saying. And they were wonderful for, my spiritual baths when I'm just tuning out and taking a moment to heal. So breaking those down so people can see it, because I learn that way. I need to see it and have it broken down in front of me. And then that's how my brain records it. So that's just the way I learn. And I felt like, well, I learn like this. There's got to be other people that learn like this too. So that will help them. And then, for teenagers, it's so wonderful because we already have so much angst and so many questions and so many changes in our physical body that make us uncomfortable and even uncomfortable in our own skin. And adults often, either forget or kind of brush it off like, it's just a phase or, oh, you'll grow out of it. Well, that doesn't help you when you're going through it. Thanks, I'll grow out of it. Cool. All right. Well, no, not helping. So, doing something like this, following some of the rituals in here, which the rituals are so great because it gives you, action. It gives you something that you physically are doing to create these positive changes in your world. You're not just reading about it. You're not just, saying a prayer or setting a crystal next to you. You're taking positive action to to bring in these positive vibrations to your world. And in doing that work, it's like how you have to ask your angels, right? Well, it's very similar. And when you do the work, you see these changes. And really the work are the rituals. It's not work. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be, if you're not enjoying it, just stop. Just let it go. Like it's like defeating the purpose, right? And I tried to do that and create these for those who needed help with guidance or, just a shift in their own vibe to create something that was fun for them. I mean, like my ritual practice really kind of started with the moon cycles. Because it's like, oh my God, I was one of those kids, look at the moon, no matter what shape it was in, right? Or what phase. And so creating my moon rituals, I started the book actually with that chapter. And it was so long. And it was like, okay, we got to break this up. You've got 30,000 page, 30,000 word chapter on moon. So it was like, okay, I was like, well, there's all these other tools I use with my moon cycles. So it's like, great. So we'll do a chapter on crystals. Like here, we'll do a chapter on manifesting. We'll do a chapter, like all the different parts that I will add to my rituals. And these rituals are not set in stone. There's no if you do it wrong, it's not going to work. And I always try to express when you're doing a ritual, the action, the magic of the ritual is in doing the ritual itself. When you're doing, while you're performing it, that's where the energy is. That's where the magic is. It's not like you just set up all your things in a pretty place and you're like, okay, and go. Like it just doesn't work that way. It's you're putting in your energy, you're enjoying, whether it's from the angels or from the moon or whatever, energy that you want to work with, your crystals and otherwise. That's where the magic is in this practice. And if you make it fun, anything that's fun is already raising our vibration, right? So when we do something that's fun and we're enjoying it, you're already creating that shift right then and there. And so for teenagers, especially, or young moms who are going through this radical life change, this is a real, or dads for that matter, right? We're inclusive of everyone. These are some big life changes. And when we're going through these cycles, it's great to just have a little bit of support. And this book really can serve as that support and a guide to help you, really take your power back and feel strong in your purpose again, and charge forward, knowing how you're gonna walk into the room next. You get to decide, you get to choose. Do you want to be depressive and sit in this state forever? No, nobody wants that. You want to move forward with your life and enjoy yourself. So start small. Start with little rituals. Start with manifesting. Start with talking with your angels. Start with Reiki. I mean, I know it's a self-attunement, but I bless the whole book with Reiki. And that attunement is really comes from me. It's before I let the editor, send it out to press. I was very, and the audio version too, for that matter. I said, no, I have to have the book before you send it out. I have to do the Reiki blessing, and I have to make sure that what I'm sending out to people is authentic. What I'm sending out to them is genuine. I'm not just writing fluff here. Like, I really want this to help people. And if, like you infuse your jewelry, it's the same thing. It's taking that moment to work with it and pour your love and your energy and to channel Reiki into this so that then they can take it and enjoy it too. So that self-attunement, yes, it's a self-attunement, but it's also me blessing these pages. So I made sure it was very energetically high vibrational and very infused with Reiki for the reader.
Yeah. And I think people can feel that too. People will feel it. So, all right, everyone, go raise your vibes. Athena Bahri, Bahri, Bahri is the last name. Great book. It's a great gift book too, for yourself and for others. And let people know, where can they find it? Where can they buy it? Let's talk a little bit too, as we're getting ready to wind down, but your website and what you teach and all of that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm on crystalreikihealer.com. And that's my handle across everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I have a lot of free tutorials for people to help them on their way on YouTube as well. TikTok, though I haven't quite figured out how all that works. And then, I teach classes. I hold monthly events. I finally am able to do in person, which is wonderful. So anybody in the Los Angeles area, it would be wonderful to have you join us for this. And otherwise, I do a lot of online teaching, but it's a one-on-one, because I love to have this one-on-one connection with people. And then, any questions they have, it's a lot easier for them to get through the lessons and learning Reiki. And I'm one of those Reiki masters that I love to keep in touch with my students. So, serving as a guide for later, not just, oh, you finished, here's your certificate. Yeah, it's not how I like to work. And just, helping people on their path. So the book is everywhere: Barnes & Noble, Amazon, my website. I do signed copies on my website. And if somebody wanted that, of course. And, I'm always open to new and wonderful. So if anybody ever had any ideas, like I need a class on something specific, let me know and we'll create it for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to meet you, to have you on here, raising our vibes on the Path 11 podcast today. So go out, get it, raise your vibes. You know, it's always helpful. I think I say this now at the end of every show of an author. Leave a review on Amazon for Athena. That's always very, very helpful to get their books up there in the search engines. They can also, the reviews help, you know, us as the buyers and the shoppers say, oh, you might also like da 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 da, and then Raise Your Vibes will pop up. So leave a review, check out the website, follow her on all social media, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the book as much as I did. So Athena, thank you again so much for being here. You were a lovely guest, and thank you everyone as always for listening, and a shout out to our California listeners. We've got lots of them. So that's wonderful. I'm sending you a person your way. Okay. So I'm introducing you to somebody that is local, but hey, she does stuff online too. So it's okay if you New Yorkers like me want to reach out to her as well. So take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. And if you are watching on Path 11 TV, that is awesome. Remember, all of our video podcasts you can watch for free on our network, path11tv.com. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate and review the Path 11 podcast in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, this podcast is made possible by our sponsor, Path 11 TV. Visit path11tv.com to start a 7-day free trial and start streaming over 100 hours of exclusive video content on consciousness, healing, and life after death. That's path11tv.com, and be sure to use coupon code podcast30 to take 30% off your annual membership. Start satisfying your spiritual curiosity with a membership to Path 11 TV today. Bye for now.